the way to do honest politics is to stand by your manifesto commitments. That would mean, as a minority administration, trying to put through, clause by clause, act of parliament by act of parliament, the manifesto commitments that we've made, and then to challenge those other parties who say that they want also to be part of progressive politics, to support each of those bills, each of those acts of parliament in turn. That's the way you get honest politics. You don't get it doing backroom deals.
Okay, but Mr.
We
Gardner,
saw what happened when we had a coalition.
Okay.
The Liberal Democrats and the Tories, neither of them kept their promises, and they both blamed each other
Mr.
for
Gardner,
it. That's not honest.
Okay, you're exuding a very...
When Piers Morgan conducted a tense interview with a Labour MP, the situation quickly spiraled out of control for the politician. The conversation was expected to focus on Labour's vision for the future, but instead it turned into an exciting show full of contradictions and ambiguities. Morgan, known for his sharp and uncompromising style, did not waste time on soft questions about the party's statements on the economy, housing and job creation. As soon as the deputy tried to evade answering a difficult question, Morgan cited irrefutable facts and figures, which threw the politician off balance. The deeper he dug, the clearer it became that the Labour Party was unable to deliver on its promises. The Member of Parliament, who was trying to answer key questions, found himself in a desperate situation, as if cornered. At some point, he was simply speechless, unable to utter a single meaningful answer, and the audience could feel his confidence melting before their eyes.
Very sort of angry and sort of enraged air this morning. We were expecting the Labour representative to come on feeling slightly jubilant that their guy Corbyn had massively exceeded all expectations. You look like it's like the end of your life.
Look, politics isn't a game. It's not about, oh, we did better than expected. They've almost lost it. We almost caught up with it. It's not about that. But it still doesn't change my sense of loss, my sense of anger, that I cannot do what my manifesto was proposing to do, and that's to make lives better for children, for young people, for ordinary people in this country, for pensioners in this country. We're not able to do that, and that is a source of real anger and grief to me, because I think politics matters.
Morgan's ability to relentlessly put pressure on his interlocutor caused more and more concern. Can the Labour Party be trusted with the future of the country if they can't handle even a simple interview? This confrontation has not just humiliated one Member of Parliament, it has exposed a deep problem that continues to plague the Labour Party. It is particularly worrying that key figures like Starmer are also being heavily criticised for similar failures. Starmer has found himself in the spotlight more than once, and he was repeatedly caught off guard in interviews when it came to party size. If the Labour Party really wants to convince the public of its ability to manage the country's finances, it needs to thoroughly understand its own figures. But it is here that they seem to have serious problems, and this is causing concern for the future of the whole country.
Well, given that your man then has lost and you feel so agitated about it, should Jeremy Corbyn now resign?
Piers, it's just the trivial way with which you sometimes treat politics as if it's a joke. I'm sorry, I don't share it. And maybe I'm just a po-faced, you know, but I don't share that sense that it's not important. You know, I was going around...
What are you talking about? What do you mean? I didn't say it wasn't important. I asked you, given the incredibly downbeat demeanour that you've been exuding for the last 6-7 minutes, on a morning we expected Labour to be pretty jubilant, I'm simply asking you a straightforward question. You are very upset that you've lost. Should you, in that situation, be calling for a change of leadership of the Labour Party to find someone who can win? Yes or no? I'm not trivialising it. I'm not making it a game. Don't put words into my mouth and don't patronise me.
During recent interviews, Reeves struggled to convey the Labour Party's economic plan to the audience, and it was visible to the naked eye. One moment she confidently states the estimated costs, and the next she begins to stumble when asked to explain the details. It's not just the lack of concrete figures, it's a real disaster when contradictions start to surface one after another. One day, the Labour Party solemnly promises not to raise taxes, and the next, they announce the introduction of new taxes. The public is not stupid and notices this obvious discrepancy. In an interview, Reeves was asked about Labour's plans for public services and infrastructure. Instead of providing clear and reliable data, she evaded the answer, offering vague formulations that completely did not coincide with previous statements by the Labour Party. The pressure on her grew, and at this critical moment she was again unable to back up the promises of the Labour Party with convincing figures.
I don't think this is down necessarily to Keir Starmer's fantastic charismatic personality or any great policies. I agree with that. However, would Jeremy Corbyn have ever come close to anything like this, whatever the Tories have done?
He had 2 goes at it.
No chance. So I think in terms of how he has made the party more electable, moving them more to the centre, taking positions on things like Israel, very contentious with much of his party, quite courageous decisions as a leader of the Labour Party, actually.
The problem isn't just limited to Reeves and Starmer. Labour's entire economic strategy seems to be based on baseless optimistic assumptions rather than clear and well-thought-out plans. The party, which is trying to position itself as a reliable alternative to the current government, is facing increasing difficulties in gaining the trust of voters when it cannot even accurately determine its financial performance. As the interview with Morgan showed, it's not just about politics, it's about the party's ability to deliver on its promises. If the Labour Party cannot calculate its resources correctly, how can it be trusted with the future of the country? This raises deep doubts about their managerial abilities, especially against the background of increasing pressure and criticism. Rachel Reeves caused quite a storm of discontent when she tried to belittle the importance of the WASPI Foundation. This campaign, which fights for the rights of women affected by the increase in retirement age, has attracted attention and support over the years. But in the interview, Reeves seemed to make it clear that the concerns were not as important as the other issues the Labour Party was focusing on. This caused an instant and furious negative reaction, undermining the party's credibility even further, and leaving many perplexed. How can you ignore such important issues?
And Richard, the problem he's going to have is that they're going to bring up people like Rosie Duffield and other Labour politicians who've been really shamed and vilified for defending basic biology.
Completely. And what it shows is that actually he's completely out of touch with his core, very socially conservative northern heartlands that he has to win over big time if he is going to get a majority. And he's nowhere near it. And, for that constituency, they know exactly what a woman is. And they also do not want their children to be taught things around gender questioning in primary, in the early years of secondary school.
Even Tom Hanks today came out and said that he refuses to read any books which have been dragged into the modern morality. In other words, all this issue around Roald Dahl and everything, he won't read them. If they have a disclaimer saying we've changed words and stuff, he said, I'm not going to read it. I loved that because he's in Hollywood, which is normally the wokest place out there. And
What's worse is the timing. Immediately after that, Piers Morgan abruptly switched the conversation to another controversial Labour figure, Angela Rayner, who enthusiastically promoted the idea of building 1.5 million new homes. Rayner's ambitious housing plan quickly became the subject of heated discussions when she was pressed with questions about who would actually live in these houses. When asked if migrants would inhabit many of these new homes, Rayner evaded the question, which only fueled interest and caused confusion. It has become quite obvious that the Labour Party's approach to housing is more like making big promises than actually addressing the complex and pressing issues of how they are going to bring these plans to life. This created the feeling that there was only emptiness behind the beautiful words, and many began to doubt the sincerity of their intentions.
Even with evidence mounting against Keir, some were so angry with Boris over Watergate, Wallpapergate, Partygate, Animalgate, to even question the integrity of Sir Keir Starmer. And those of us who did were seen as far right. Well, here he is, folks, our great leader. It's fascinating listening to people trying to excuse his behaviour and that of his close Labour allies. You can almost see the mental gymnastics that they use to try and excuse him. So whilst things have got worse for us, they certainly got better for Keir and his greedy clan. Absolutely disgraceful and utter hypocrite.
The contrast was startling and shocking. On the one hand, the Labour Party indifferently ignored real, long-standing issues, such as the WASPI campaign, which affects the fate of thousands of women. On the other hand, they enthusiastically promoted a housing project that looked more like a fantasy than a real solution. The more the Labour Party evaded the answers, the more questions arose about their ability to cope with the real problems of the country. Angela Rayner's promise to build 1.5 million new homes has become one of the key points of their policy. It sounds great on paper, but in practice it turns out to be much more complicated and confusing. When Rayner first presented this idea, it was seen as a bold solution to the housing crisis, but with each new discussion, more and more questions arose about its feasibility. The first problem is the numbers. Building 1.5 million homes is a colossal task that requires incredible efforts and resources. Even with the best intentions, the logistics of such a project turns out to be overwhelming. The Labour Party has promised to solve the housing shortage, but the timing and financing of this plan remain in the shadow of uncertainty. What happens when the money runs out or construction stops? Share your thoughts in the comments. See you.